Hey, I'm Callie. Thanks so much for watching Graceland Online. Graceland Church exists to see lives transformed in the neighborhoods, the generations, and the nations through Jesus Christ. And the teaching that you're about to hear is based on the Bible, and we believe that it will be inspiring and relevant to your life. And if you're here because you're searching for answers to tough questions or looking for help on how to navigate life, we would love for you to text us with any questions or if you just need someone to talk to. And again, thanks for watching Graceland Online. We're praying for you, and we hope that this video will be an encouragement to you on your spiritual journey.
Well, thanks for joining me today for this talk. My name's Larry, and I know as we walk through things around us, change is really difficult. And that's what we're really talking about today. How do we change our lives? How do we change from the struggles that we are going through? Everybody desires some kind of change. They desire for new things to be happening or something different or coming out of our backgrounds and our struggles. All of us are trying to see, okay, what are we going to change here? What are we going to change there? I recently read a story about a guy who was arrested because he was driving, or actually not driving, sitting in the back seat of his Tesla as it was driving around the city. And people were calling the cops because they saw a car with nobody sitting behind the steering wheel. And so finally, the word got out and they located the car and they pulled him over. And sure enough, he was sitting in the back seat, just kind of watching and videoing because he was driving this self-driving car. And one of his things that he talked about in this little article that I was reading is he believes that we are changing so much in our world that he was trying to just go along with the change. Thought that was interesting, going along with the change, being able to figure out what's changing and how we're changing and just kind of being satisfied or being a part of it. And as I relate that to life, and as I relate that to some of the things that we go through, how we go through life and what we blame things on and how we are able to take the blame from ourselves and put them somewhere else, man, that's an important thing, you know. Who do we blame? How do we blame for things that are happening? And how do those things really shift in our lives? Most often we deal with change or blame of not being able to change on other things. Have you heard people say, well, I'm really not going to change because that's just the way I am, right? Or that's my family's background. Or somebody provoked me to do something or caused me to do something. And so I'm not willing to change because of whatever reason that we give. And oftentimes that change, we struggle with it and it really becomes a problem for us. Sometimes the things in our life that drive guilt, or the things in our life that drive shame on ourselves, or things in our life that drive our lack of confidence, or even how we feel about ourselves, self-worth, will often come out of the fact that I know I need to change, but I'm not willing to change, and we have an excuse or a blame of not willing to change. Even though we know that the world around us is changing, sometimes we want to be on it. And you hear the cycle, right? You hear the struggle that we go through. There's a guy in the Old Testament in the Bible that talked about how there was things that I knew. He said this, remember not the things in the past, or don't consider the things of old. Because the Lord has said, God has said, I am doing a new thing. I'm doing something new in our lives. And we are looking for new things to replace those things that we are struggling with in our change. Now, I know a lot of our lives, we do want to change. That's part of our behavior, right? How do we blame our behavior on someone else? And changing our behavior becomes hard for us. Changing our behavior becomes difficult because we like who we are and we make excuses. As well as we've blamed other people, who we are, our family, this is my personality. Oftentimes our behavior goes a little different way. Our behavior, we might say, oh, it's not that bad, or it's only a small thing, or that's what other people are doing. And overall, I'm really not that bad of a person. You know, I've got these problems, I've got these hang-ups, but I'm really not that bad. Look at all the good things that I'm doing. And we compare our lives with other people. Now, that's both good and bad. It's not wrong sometimes to compare ourselves with others because it might help us to move forward. But it becomes difficult for us when we compare ourselves with other people and we begin to say, man, I wish I could do that, or I'm not that good, or they're doing something bad and I'm doing something bad, but I'm not doing something as bad as they are. And so oftentimes that guilt and the struggle with our behavior begins to take really control of our lives. And that's what we're talking about today. That's how we're trying to say that when we get in that place where we're not willing to change, though we know things are not going well for us, we get in that place of digging into who we are, digging in of comparing ourselves to others, digging in oftentimes of our own self-worth and our struggle with our own self-worth, that we begin to say, how do we change? How do we become the person that we really want to become? Well, oftentimes we say, well, if only this happens, if only this would occur, or if only I could do this, then I would be able to make the change. It goes back to the guy driving the car, right? Or not driving the car. He knew that the world is changing around him and what's happening with cars are changing around him. And he just wanted to push that a little farther. He just wanted to test that to see what it was like. If only we could be in that place. You know, Jesus speaks to that in the New Testament. He tells us that when things, in his parable, an illustration, a parable is a story, an illustration that help us understand something. He said in one of his parables that you don't take wine, and this is ancient, 2,000 years ago, a new wine and put it into an old wineskin, but that you put it into a new one. Now, the cultural situation behind that is that wineskins of 2,000 years ago, where they would put their wine, was actually in a skin of an animal. And as the wine would ferment, it would stretch, and the skin would stretch with it, and they would be able to store it. Well, Jesus says you don't put new wine into the old wineskin because the old one had already stretched enough. And if you put new wine in there and you fill it up and it begins to expand, it would break and be destroyed. Now, his parable that he told us really had to do with our lives. It has to do with our willingness to say, how am I willing to change who I am so that I can become the person that I desire to be? Now, a lot of that change, a lot of that newness happens as we focus on who we want to become. The idea of admitting our own struggles, admitting our own problems, admitting some of the things that we use for excuses and to blame others really is just an excuse, or it's a blame in that. So how do we begin that process of admitting that we want to change, but we don't want to do the things that change our behavior? Now, in doing that, we have to tell somebody when we're ready to change. We have to be ready to say to a friend, to a family member, to someone around us, hey, I'm at that place where I really am ready to change. I really am the kind of person who is changing, and I need to change. And to be able to admit that I need to change and to tell someone about that moves us to the place where we can believe that the greatest way that we can change is not by us trying to do better, by us trying to perform better, for us trying to change our behaviors all by ourselves. But I would submit to you that as Jesus talked about new wine into old wineskins, it would be the newness of a relationship with Jesus Christ. That would be the beginning place. I'm not talking about a religion. I'm not talking about joining a church. I'm not talking about doing a certain amount of things. I'm talking about a relationship with one who changes us. The Bible says that when we become a follower of Christ, we are like a new creation. And that makes all the difference in the world. So when you're dealing with blame and excuses and how do I change and I'm not happy with myself anymore, for a lot of us, it's coming to that place where we have a relationship with Jesus Christ. And then out of that, it's a daily understanding. It didn't mean that we have changed and become perfect. It means that we're in the process of changing, that things in our life are not just on us, that we're able to see that we have a grief in our sin or a grief in the things that we do wrong, that's a godly kind of grief, one that's willing to change, to be more like the one into whom we have that relationship with. So I would encourage you, as you are walking through just the struggles that you have in your life, how do you begin that change process? Well, it's admitting we need that change. It's sharing that with people around us. It's getting that encouragement from those around us. It's recognizing, where is my relationship with the one who can change me from the inside out? That's what we're talking about. And then walking through it daily, being able to say, this is how my life is changing, and I'm willing to admit it and walk forward with it. I believe that the Lord Jesus Christ wants to do amazing things and continuing to change us so that our lives might be like him. And I hope that you will see your own struggles, put them in perspective, and be able to say, this is how I can change. This is what needs to happen in your life, so that you can say, this is who God has made me. I hope you have a great week.
Thanks again for watching Graceland Online. We hope that God spoke to you today through this video. And again, feel free to text us if you have questions about what you heard, or if there's any way that we might be able to help you. And you can also find more videos and resources at gracelandchurch.online. And if you feel that you've been blessed by these videos, please consider donating so that we can continue sharing more content to more people. Thanks again for watching, and we hope you'll join us again soon.